What do you got? Okay.
I'll make my plate big.
Our leads, it's Chick-fil-A locality.
They beat Duke.
We beat them twice and State beat them last night.
Wake Forest got a line. Coming tough on the back.
Back to the museum, not to Mary.
That's true.
I think it was kind of the type survey, and I think Scott was trying. Probably so.
We'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Guthrie, our vice mayor, would you please have us join you in the pledge of allegiance? Would you please stand? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Thank you all for being here tonight. You all have had the agenda now for a couple of days, had a chance to look at it. Is there a motion to approve the agenda proposed for tonight's council meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Celine. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Motion second to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed, by like sign. Motion carries. You also have with your agenda packet the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to have pulled for further consideration? Or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as mailed?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item F, please.
Item F,
Yes, sir.
ordinance review.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anyone else? So we'll pull item F and we'll take it up, immediately following the motion to approve the consent agenda. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item F? Thank you, Mr. Collins, a second. Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign. Motion carries. Okay, ordinance review committee has made some recommended revisions. There's 3 of them in your agenda package: evaluation policy, purchasing preference, and junk and abandoned car ordinance. Mr. Guthrie, is there a particular area in those 3 items that you want to discuss, or all 3?
Just all 3, and my question is if these are the same, if there are any additions or any changes from what we discussed for those 3 items.
No, no changes. We did clarify some language in the performance evaluation policy. So you'll see that that's in blue is what we changed from the ordinance review committee. The local buying, purchasing preference policy has clarification alluding to the fact that if there is an eligible local bidder who bids within 2% of another non-local bidder, then we will go back to that local bidder and see if they will match that lowest.
Let me remind the board of one quick housekeeping matter. If you're going to speak, then we'll pick up your voice a lot better if you push the button and turn your red light on. Otherwise, people may not be able to hear the words you have to speak. So if you're gonna say anything, you need to turn your red light on, okay? All right,
Well,
thank you. Ms. Owens?
okay, and is that okay for the first thing? Okay, and then for the last one, related to the junk and abandoned motor vehicles, state statute utilizes the clarification of or in between each of the different definitions. Our ordinance did not have that, so it could be interpreted to read as and making you require all three of those that were in our ordinance. So we just added the clarification directly from state statute.
The $30,000 threshold under the local buying policy, that's a state regulation, correct? Thank you.
Any other questions, sir?
Had,
Yes, Ms. Lane?
had the junk and abandoned car, changed? I mean, had we had any pushback on that? Have we tried to junk some cars or get rid of abandoned cars?
That was part of what we were looking at in order to move forward with doing that as part of our processes. However, like I said, the way it read was that it had to be all of those things, so we didn't have as much enforcement capability. Now matching the state statute, it can be or in each one. I think
The
John
other
has
the other thing that was discussed in, ordinance review is you don't wanna go pick up a car just because it has an expired tag on it. It has to have more than just an expired tag for it to be a violation of our ordinance.
And I think we've done lots of enforcements over the years that, this has been in place for, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years, something like that. There was a slim argument somebody could make to say that we had a higher restriction than state law requires on when a car is junked or abandoned. And just having the or in there removes that, but it's kind of a technicality, but it removes any doubt.
Anything else?
I'm just glad we're not gonna pick up cars for expired tags, cause mine will get towed right now, yeah.
I say go for it.
Hear that, chief? Discussion about the take the items that were pulled from the consent agenda, or is there a motion to approve these items? Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. Lewis, motion to approve, seconded.
Second.
Good, any discussion further? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed by like sign, that motion carries, and those will be approved as well. as consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to recognize Chief Devin Holland to come forward to make an introduction tonight. Chief Holland.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to present you this evening, introduce you to our new officer. I've kind of revised, which I'll explain later when I do my quarterly report, one of our positions to what I call a CTAC, which stands for Community Traffic and Crime. And we have hired Sergeant Matthew Breedlove. He brings with us almost 20 years of experience in law enforcement. He's very skilled in drug interdiction, and he has great work ethics, but he also has some firefighting and EMS experience as well. He's maintained part-time status with us throughout the years, so it was an easier transition to bring him on board. He began March 11th, so please welcome him to our crew.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you, glad to be back with the town of Franklin. It's a great agency to work for, and I look forward to being with Chief Holland and his staff. It's a great staff so far, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, it's good to have you back again. I was gonna be a little facetious and ask you how much you know about the town of Franklin, but I think you got that pretty well covered. Thank you, good to have you back with us. At this time, we'd like to introduce a proclamation honoring and celebrating National Tartan Day. We have representatives here representing the tartans and the Tartan Museum. I'd like them to come forward, and we'll read this from the podium up there and present you this proclamation. will let each one of you introduce yourself before I read this proclamation.
I'm Daniel Williamson, curator of the Scottish Tartans Museum.
My name is Heidi Hunter, and I'm an associate with the Scottish Tartans Museum and Heritage Center.
I'm Jim Akins, I'm president of the board.
Good to have you all with us. This is the Town of Franklin proclamation honoring and celebrating National Tartan Day, designating April 6th of each year as National Tartan Day to recognize the outstanding achievements and contributions made by Scottish Americans to the United States. Whereas April 6th has a special significance for all Americans, especially those Americans of Scottish descent, because the Declaration of Aberystwyth, the Scottish Declaration of Independence, was signed on April the 6th, 1320, and the American Declaration of Independence was modeled on that inspirational document. And whereas this resolution honors the major role that Scottish Americans played in the founding of this nation, such as the fact that almost half of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were of Scottish descent. The governors of 9 of the 13 original states were of Scottish ancestry. Scottish Americans successfully helped shape this country in its formative years and guide this nation through its most troubled times. And whereas this resolution recognizes the monumental achievements and invaluable contributions made by Scottish Americans that have led to America's preeminence in the fields of science, technology, medicine, government, politics, economics, architecture, literature, media, and visual and performing arts. And whereas this resolution commends the more than 200 organizations throughout the United States that honor Scottish heritage, tradition, and culture, representing the hundreds of thousands of Americans of Scottish descent residing in every state, who already made the observance of Tartan Day on April 6th a success. And whereas these numerous individuals, clans, societies, clubs, and fraternal organizations do not let the great contributions of the Scottish people go unnoticed. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jack Horton, Mayor of the Town of Franklin, on behalf of the Town Council of Franklin, North Carolina, in concert with the North Carolina Senate, designates April 6th each year as National Tartan Day in the Town of Franklin, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and to cause the seal of the Town of Franklin to be affixed on this April 1st, 2024.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I'll give you an opportunity to say anything if you wish.
Oh, wow.
I just appreciate the support that the town and the council, gives the museum. We are the only one outside of Scotland. Technically, we're the only one because Scotland has not started a new one yet.
Please come downtown, April 6th, between 11 and 2. Yeah, we will be celebrating Tartan Day. There'll be plenty going on.
And we'll have a tartan search tent set up, so if there's anybody that has a question as to whether or not their surname, their last name, has Scottish, Irish, English, or Welsh heritage to it, we can look that up. All of those have tartan.
Right.
They have the plaid, so come and check it out. We also have lots of histories, and we'd love to share that with you.
Loud and cloud right here.
There you go. If you don't have your kilt, we can hook you up.
And if you're fortunate, you might run into Mr. Covey. He hangs around that area every once in a while.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and, I'm trying to talk him into entering the, Bonnie Nee's
Are you?
contest.
Well, thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
English, yeah, Scotch, Irish, and German from my mom's side.
Now I'd like to have planner Justin Sessions come forward, and we're going to discuss the request for approval of fee for temporary use / RV camper fee. Mr. Setzer.
Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. In your packet, you should see a Word document which just lays out some different fees, what some other towns and counties in the state do for temporary, uses for RVs and campers. There's a wide range of fees there, everything from no fee to $500. You'll see, this was just me doing basic internet searches in North Carolina only. I didn't try to go out of the state. Trying to just get up some different fees. Some places don't have this, so I think Haywood County was the closest one I could find that had a fee. So it's, our recommendation was if you want to do a fee, it's just $50. I think no more than that would be fine, but it's an all decision.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Sessom?
I don't like fees, but I'll motion to approve $50 as the fee, so that somebody else doesn't motion a higher amount.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation on the fee. And is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed by like sign, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sessom. Don't go anywhere.
I'll be here in a few more minutes.
We have requests for 5 public hearings. And regrettably, you have to make a motion on each one. You can't do them all with one motion, so we'll take them in order that they're in your agenda. Mr. Collins.
I would like us to go ahead and set all of the, set them all at 6:05. Sometimes nobody shows up and it's kind of awkward to have to wait until 6:15 or 6:20. It'd be there, or assume thereafter they could be heard, but do they each have to have a separate time? Probably, maybe.
6:06, 6:07.
I mean, yeah, you know, sometimes it takes about a minute to knock them out, and then what do you do for the next 4?
Start time 6:05, for socks, so, you know, for the second or third one, you're here for all of them.
We can't hear you without your mics turned on.
We're discussing.
Deliberating.
6:05 for the first, 6:08 for the second, 6:11 for the third, 6:14 for the fourth, and 6:17 for the 15th. That might save us 8 minutes. That's my motion.
Your motion is to approve them, but change the time of starting for each one. And the motion to approve has to be individually, A, B, C, D, so forth. So you're saying change the time starting to the time.
Motion A, 6:05, I make that motion for until May 6th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second, any discussion?
I have some questions.
Yes, Mr. Cook.
So Justin, the suggestion is to approve the conditional zoning request. So the first question is in the process of conditional zoning, when does this board get involved? Is it after the public hearing?
It would be, I think right after hearing it.
So you're not prohibited from having any discussion with anybody you want to about a completely legislative matter, which is what a conditional zoning is. So you can discuss it, and it's gonna be wise, and I think in places where, you know, the jurisdiction's been doing conditional zoning for a while, to get applicants get more used to the idea that they better come and make sure the town council is on board with whatever it is, and we'll seek to meet with maybe 2 of you at a time and make sure you know what it is, and they've answered your questions. So you don't have to have a public hearing for you all to have had input about what's in a conditional zoning application. You can't approve one until you've had a public hearing, because it is a rezoning, and that requires public hearing before you make that change. But as far as input in it, you can have it anytime, and I think that might be something we can do with this intervening month we're gonna have, is give these applicants notice that if you wanna get some feedback now, you don't have to wait until there's a hearing. And I know you, from our discussion earlier, you've got some to offer.
Shouldn't they have been here already?
It's not a bad idea, it's not required. They are taking some chance that you won't immediately get where they're going and approve and want to get on board with it and want to see some changes. And there's also nothing wrong, if you have a hearing, they present their plan and you aren't ready to approve it until they've made some changes. So you can have there's nothing wrong with having a hearing. They have discussion, open discussion with them about what you'd like to see in the plan, what you'd like to see added, and if we can't see eye to eye right then, they can take a while and think about it, come back to the next meeting, continue that matter to the next meeting. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
But in order to have the public hearing, you need to have it published and notify the adjoining property owners as to when and where and what time that public hearing is going to be met. Correct?
Yes,
So that's basically what we're asking for at this time is, will you approve the public hearing concerning that request? And the board is not required to make a decision immediately after that. You can make a decision anytime after the public hearing.
yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure that I'll always come. I think I'd like for us to be invited to when you have that meeting that's required now with conditional zoning. I think it'd be good at least to know when that is.
Yeah.
So that if we could go, that we would be able to go. I'd like to be on record that we'd like to, because I see sometimes nobody comes or one
Yeah.
time, and that shows a real lack of.
Yeah, between the four of these, two had nobody come, one had one person come, and one had 15 people come.
How do we advertise those, Justin?
We mail letters to everybody within 400 feet, every property owner, and then we also put signs out on the property for people to see, general public. But for those, we don't publish them in the paper. The only ones we'll publish is the actual public hearing with town council.
There's also nothing wrong with going to the planning board meeting, because they still review these things. And the only caution about that is if 4 of you show up, you're having a meeting of the town council, because it's town business and there's a majority of you there. So you've got to have a little bit of caution, and I'm sure Justin would pick cotton onto that and make sure there was only a very maximum of 3 of you at a meeting like that.
Mr. Copeland.
I was gonna say, Stacy, if you have, specific opinions, as we go through this and set these public hearings during the discussion part of the vote to set the public hearing, I for one would be glad to hear whatever you wanted to say about each one as we go down through there. And further to that, since, that's a lot of public hearings that we're gonna set, maybe at the next meeting, each one of these things could be in like a separate packet, and then we can sit there and kind of leaf through it as it's happening. Is that possible?
Do it however you want.
Okay. That way it's in front of us, maps and stuff, because there's 4, so there's gonna be, actually there's 5. There'll be 5 different parcels and maps in front of us, so, yeah.
One's a traditional rezoning, it's not a conditional.
It's a lot to chew, so we're gonna be busy with public hearings at that next meeting, so, yeah, it'd be easier to digest, I think, if we see it.
Are we expecting input on these public hearings, more than likely?
I would, but one of them I fully expect you'll probably have quite a few here.
Which one is that?
D.
Oh, that's D.
The other 3, you might not have anybody here, other than the developers. And, right now, 2 of them, C and D, are already annexed. A and B are not, part of their conditions. On all 4, we've asked them all to do sidewalks and everything on all of them. A and B, we've asked them to annex if they're approved, through, if they get their grant funding from the state for the tax credit program. And then, D though, still having some conversations, there probably might be some screening requests that some of the neighbor property owners had on that one. So there might be an added condition on some screening.
As far as annexing, if we hook up the water and sewer as part of our water and sewer extension policy, they have to be annexed, right? It's not like, there's no choice in the matter, that's our policy.
Your line extension.
there is your choice.
It's our
You don't have
choice,
to
yeah,
accept
but there
everybody.
could be a circumstance where we, wouldn't require
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I think it's if it's an actual extension that we're taking over. If it was simply somebody from water and sewers, like right out front, they tie on, it's not a requirement.
Okay.
But these two, ask them, and if there's other conditions council would like to know before, you let me in and we can start having those conversations.
I don't wanna get too deep in the weeds at this point, but you say sidewalks, are we talking about walkable sidewalks or sidewalks to nowhere, like that's out there on Tyler Road now?
As far as I know, it's sidewalks just along the property line, because I don't think we can require anybody to go build sidewalks off their property. Cause then I think we're getting potentially into some contract stuff that we're not supposed to do, contract zoning, which is not legal. So that's why I'm just asking them to build it along. Both of the three on Sila Road, only one of those is probably gonna get built, or maybe not, maybe the other ones, depending on how rezonings and state funding goes. But, maybe two do, they're bordering the other one, so you're gonna see it tying on an extending those sidewalks, if those do.
Is there any other discussion concerning Mr. Collins' motion?
Yeah, I'm just, so I have some ideas on each one of these, but I'm just gonna give you the big picture things that I'm concerned about, and then hopefully we'll have a chance to get into each one of them individually, when the developers are here. You're talking about projects that I'm happy that we're getting this many proposals for residential because of the need that we have. And I think you'll see some more that are closer to downtown coming in pretty soon too. So at least we're gonna start to tackle that problem. But what I worry about is making sure that the impacts that we're gonna have on infrastructure, transportation, walkability, things of that nature, that we talk about them on the front end. We're pretty good here about having to try to play catch up and respond to things that happen. And I'd like for us to, if we can only ask the developer to have sidewalks on their sidewalk, then let's have a discussion on how we're gonna meet the need for the rest of that section of Solid Road. Let's talk about what the impacts are gonna be, especially you look at Solid Road and Almond Drive, the impacts that's gonna have on one of the busiest intersections, well, the busiest intersection in Macon County that already has traffic issues. We should talk about that beforehand and think about, are there ways that we can mitigate those issues instead of trying to play catch up at a later date. Those are my concerns.
Anyone else?
Are there ways to mitigate that, Stacy? The traffic?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to know, and my understanding is we can ask for it in conditional zoning, is for an impact study. Let's find out how much traffic this is gonna produce, and then figure out with NCDOT what we need to do.
I thought the last time we talked about these first two, that you said that the traffic impact analysis was not
Well,
something
they're
we're
not,
gonna do.
per our requirement in the EO, it is not, doesn't kick in where it's automatically required. But I mean, it can be a condition that, that town
What's the
council.
additional condition?
If you make, though, I just warn, if you make that a condition on all of these, they will not meet their funding for the tax credit program. They have to submit in our May meeting, 4 days after our May meeting is when they have to submit. A lot of these run into this, where they wait to the last minute, and
Well, getting back to Mr. Duffy's, comment on that, each one of these properties and other properties that may come along aren't all exactly the same. There'll be probably some conditions on some properties that wouldn't make sense for others. And I think that's part of the evaluation process when you go through the conditional use or rezoning or whatever, and you have conditions that are printed, plus any other conditions that are concerns with the people who live and use that area. Those need to be taken into consideration before we ask the board to make a final decision on it.
Yeah, and I don't wanna be I don't think we ought to be held hostage to anybody's deadline.
No,
That's not our responsibility.
no, I'm just telling you that just so you're aware of the whole, how the flow is and everything. Completely up, decision.
Okay, anything else concerning Mr. Collins' motion? We have a motion and a second to approve, and Mr. Collins, will you repeat that time for?
Public hearing at 6:05, is this for A?
A, 6:05
10.63
PM.
acres.
All those in favor of that motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign. The next one, call for a public hearing.
Concerning B, call for public hearing, 7.2 acres, 6:08 on May the 6th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to change that to 6:08 on May the 6th. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign. That motion carries.
C, 5 acres off Almond Road, public hearing May 6th at 6:11 PM. All of these are as soon thereafter as possible.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Ms. Lane.
Is this the one, Justin, that we don't have your report on, or the planning board?
That is D,
Okay,
because it hasn't went to planning board yet. It's going to planning board in 2 weeks, because they submitted late.
So we still want to have a public hearing in May.
If you just want to set it.
All right, May 6th at 6:14.
Wait a minute, we haven't voted on C yet. 6:11, motion made and seconded. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, by like sign, that motion carries. Item D.
D, May 6th, 6:14 PM or soon thereafter for the conditional rezoning 3.63 acres off Highlands Road.
6:17.
Have a motion,
That's 14 now.
second? We have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion?
Are we gonna have a recommendation on that prior to the public hearing?
I'll have it it'll be here at the public hearing and in the package. By the time they submitted, for the only way for them to get in by their May deadline, set the hearing tonight. They got in way later than we would like.
Typically, we'd have that information though tonight to decide on what to call hearing, correct?
Yes.
I mean, we can always cancel the hearing if it's not approved or doesn't come before us. Is this a
We have to
separate,
advertise, we have to re-advertise.
is this a separate funding pool from the A, B, and C?
No, all A, B, C, and D is all the same funding pool.
So 4 different projects, the likelihood of all 4 getting built is very slim.
No, supposedly at most 1. That's what all 4 developers saying, and they're all competing for the same pot of money, and potentially only 1 would get funding.
and is it your understanding that they won't do it if they don't get funding?
Everyone, that's what they've all told me. They said if they don't get funding, they won't move forward with it.
They wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah.
I thought maybe some might, we'll just build market rate housing, and they've all said, no, they won't do that.
No questions? Yes, Ms.
I couldn't tell on this last one whether there was, I mean, there's 3 stories, I couldn't see whether there was an elevator there.
I don't know if there is or not, probably not, because it's not senior housing. A lot of they don't have elevators in unless they're senior. They're all, even the ones on Roller Mill and on Siler now, they don't have any elevators. They're all just stairs.
But the other 2, the other 3 do have them, correct?
The only one I know that has an elevator for sure
The
is
senior?
A, the senior one. The other 2 have not mentioned that there's an elevator.
I'm just gonna point out on this one, this is another good example. We put that out there, we asked the developer to build a sidewalk. You could theoretically walk to a grocery store, but There are areas with no sidewalks, no crosswalks, it's unsafe. Those are the things I wanna talk about before we make decisions on this stuff.
And on that point, just briefly, I wanna look into it. I'm not sure if there's a contract zoning problem with requiring them to be built on somebody else's property, and there'd be lots of problems, there'd be title problems. But I'm not sure there isn't a way to require an assessment that they've set aside funding to make that possible. You'd be able to construct the sidewalk, so.
Yeah, that might be,
That's something to
okay,
look
yeah.
at.
Go there.
I just wanna point out something interesting, and there may be a question in it, I don't know. We know all four of these are going for the same form of funding. We also, under conditional zoning, have the ability to require all sorts of stuff of each developer for each parcel. If we require something of one parcel and don't require it of the other, we're kind of picking and choosing who's gonna get to build which one of these units. And when we could put ridiculous requirements on one of the four, super easy requirements on one of the four, I mean, that's gonna be the winner ultimately. So I mean, aren't we kind of deciding that? And it's
Those
that,
properties are identical though, that's why where you have conditional zone, one property's not gonna have issues that another one is.
well, and that's my question, does that open us up to any kind of them saying that we didn't do we didn't do it fairly because we, set the bar really high for one parcel and didn't set it that high for the other one?
If you don't review these things objectively and give everybody the same consideration, then you could be opening yourself up for a lawsuit.
But they'd have to have some stupendous facts to back that up, like some way to document that you didn't give one fair, equal treatment because you didn't like them for some reason. You didn't, some discriminatory basis for it, not just, you didn't give us our approval and we wanted it. I mean, and that's what, as Mike said, mostly every situation is gonna be different and be open to, and as long as they're made in good faith and for reasons that pertain to making sure that they meet with your approval for zoning reasons, I wouldn't worry about it.
Like, for example, if we wanted senior housing as opposed to regular housing, we could make senior housing easier to do than regular housing. And that would be unfair just on the basis of, like, we can't choose senior housing just because we want senior housing, or vice versa.
That could be a very, yeah, I think that could be a policy decision. Look at the needs of the community.
Population.
Yeah, to see, whether or not that would match, but yes, I think one age group over another could be a very,
An income status group, I've seen this work several times to have it set aside a certain amount for median income groups or if you had an at market rate project going in, not these, because obviously they're gonna be tied to an income level.
Which we really need.
But you can,
But that's not part of conditional zoning, that's more policy, or is that?
you're setting policy when you set a condition for a given project.
I think you can make that, some of the ones I've seen in other towns, even in Woodfin,
Yeah.
they've had some conditions like that. They've had it where it's affordable only, it couldn't be market rate. And so you can get some very specific conditions that they've got to agree with and you all have to agree with.
So we really can pick the winner, and just say, we want this one to go here, and basically choose it.
for a lot of reasons, we effectively will be, for a lot of reasons. If,
But the
depending on
conditions of that-
location, depending on all the circumstances, we're gonna have our favor, yeah.
Yeah, the situations that each one of them is gonna dictate the condition. It's not like we're gonna stack the deck. We're looking at, like I said, they're not all identical, so each one may have a lot more issues than the other.
But site-wise and target audience-wise and capacity-wise, they're all different, not just by the actual site parameters, they're demographic specific as well.
Well, and some are gonna have to require, pumps for the sewer, and some are gravity. There is some variations on that, that's gonna be theirs to maintain, but there is some variations on that as well.
To be honest though, for these four, I'm more worried about one thing that I've made myself a note to look into, is whether or not you can set the receipt of the funding they say they need to build it as a condition, so that you don't have a conditional zoning that hangs out there forever with these approved plans and the ability to build it some other time, without coming back here and talking with you all again. Cause I think you're gonna feel compelled with these four all lining up with the races for this same amount of pot of money, to say, go for it, whoever can get it, good luck to you. But I think you need to be able to say receipt of it and construction of it in a certain amount of time as a condition.
Of the conditional
Yes.
zoning.
The sunset provision.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Anything else?
Do we say, or do they say, what percent of their, or is that a part of the funding? What percent of the apartments are,
That's set by federal regulation,
okay,
by HUD.
right, thanks.
And all these are ranked, they have to go through a ranking program through the housing tax credit program, so, that's something you could actually probably, supposedly they submit them early, and they're supposed to know those, so they'll probably know what their rankings are by the time you get to this hearing. So you can be like, hey, well, how did you score? And you can maybe know, what their rankings are from there. And then we might have some that say, well, we didn't score well, that we're pulling out by then too.
There's a measure called area median income, and the AMI, and that's what's generally the measuring stick that's set under federal regulation to say, what's a good salary for an area, what's a good take-home pay, and then targets at like 80% of that. Or there is super duper subsidized stuff at 50%, where you're talking about people that are really low wage earners having a shot at some decent housing.
So none of these are mixed, they're all gonna be low income. I thought, for some way, when I read something, I thought it was mixed.
I think it's all low, I think, other than the senior, even the senior is, but then you've got an age requirement.
I seem to remember the one out at Roller Mill though is mixed, and there was something like
Yeah.
their grant was like reserved 20 or 30% for that 80% or lower of AMI type.
Jack, one more thing. I just wanted to say, we kind of got to thread the needle here, because as excited as we all are about our first conditional zoning here, like, we need houses to be built, so we need to do the things that need to be done to make the town a
We
better
need the
place.
right kind of housing,
We do need housing,
but
so.
we need the right kind.
Yeah, we need housing though, that doesn't leave the people who benefit from the housing in a situation I mean, you're talking about, again, a population that, a big burden on them is the requirement that they have an automobile to go everywhere. And to the extent that we can do it and make it walkable, I think we should do it. And the other thing is, we're looking at infrastructure costs that we ought to look at on the front end instead of passing them down the road. I'm trying to help us out here so we don't have to raise taxes later on down the road to pay for some infrastructure that we should have put in on the front end, or that we should require the developer to put in.
Still will be a lot of questions on each one of these as they come up, but right now we have a motion to set the public hearing and a second to do that, and is there other discussion? Here now, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Vote the like sign. That's D. The last one we have is, E.
Yes,
And
public
sign on
hearing.
that, Mr. Collins, is 6 what?
6:15,
6:15.
that's right, Franklin High School property.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I have a question. What's the advantage to the high school project for them to change the zoning from mixed use to R2?
So currently, the current high school site, is kind of mixed zone. Some of it's R2, the back portion where like the practice field and some of the ag building is now is zoned R2. But then the rest of the property, the football field, the main building, everything else, and even the Higdon properties across the road is all zoned, neighborhood mixed use. And the advantage, the way the county looks at it is, in R2, schools, elementary and primary are a by right use, and R2 and R1 doesn't have any size restrictions per our UDO. So they're thinking about uniformly rezoning to R2, so it's all the same, and it's also it's a by right use.
Just, they've been talking about making that Higdon property a land lab where they'd have livestock and whatnot. Would that be a problem with this zoning change?
No,
Are they having the vision about that? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that being a land lab.
they haven't mentioned that, but it comes, because it's a condition, or conventional rezoning, we have to think about everything that's allowed in that zone, and I think agricultural is allowed in all zones. It's an R1 and on.
So what are the size restrictions?
In R1 and R2, there is no size restrictions.
But the mixed use, would that prohibit them from building?
Mixed use, yeah, mixed use of size restrictions is, it's a different, it goes off a footprint, it's like a 5,000 footprint. It's an odd one we had. Everything else goes off a square foot, we lowered it to 15,000 when we did conditional on everything. But mixed use, neighborhood mixed use was 5,000 footprint, so it was a little different. And we probably actually changed that as I think about it, when we changed everything. So that's, and the new building would be splitting it kind of the way the bin would be right through the middle of it.
Any more questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries 6:15. Thank you, Mr. Setzer. Item number 8 is our public session. And we have no one here who has signed up to speak in public comment. Is there anyone who didn't get a chance to sign up to speak for public comment? Yes, sir. If you would, please come forward, give us your name. And what university you support?
Good afternoon, my name is Virgil Valentine. I have a question about the property rezoning. I live at 645 Silo Road, and I have two questions. One is, since we're rezoning, will my property be somehow another rezone into that, or will I still stay in the county?
So, Mr. Setzer, could you answer that question?
Yours would stay the way it is. It's only the parcel that they are, the one individual parcel.
Okay.
All the other, you probably got a letter and it was, you'll get another one. It was just letting you know about it here.
Also, the last question is, y'all actually own a small strip in the front of my property. I was wondering if we could actually purchase that, or could it not be developed?
We can take a look at it and see what, if any.
Yeah, turn your mic on there. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have anyone else who would like to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, friends. My name is Tawana Valentine. I too reside at 645 Silo Road. I understand that the town purchased some land behind my house. And I think I may have called and spoke with the town manager after there was some hunters who were on that property. Now, I was told that hunting is not allowed on town property, but I've not been able to get a clear and concise answer to that question. But I know no one should be shooting around a dwelling. I know that's illegal. Can somebody give me some clarity while I'm here on that?
Counselor?
There is an ordinance that prohibits discharge of weapons inside the town limits.
Not just a gun, any projectile, a bow, a gun, a black powder rifle, a BB gun.
Does she live in the town limits?
What was it, 654?
645 Solid Road.
You're talking about the property behind you that goes to the river? It's gonna
Yes,
be the
it's
Greenway extension.
directly, well, it's before, no, it's the Greenway is to the left. This is directly behind.
I think that's gonna be the Greenway though, in the
It
near
is.
future, yeah.
Yeah.
If there is shooting going on, what's she supposed to do? Call the police?
Yes.
I think it's ETJ, is that prohibition in the ETJ as well?
And no, I believe it's only ever applied to the corporate limit. And I think you are outside the corporate limit. We can look at that, we can confer with law enforcement about it.
Okay, that particular night, I did call law enforcement, and it was the county who came out, and I was basically told, well, it's hunting season, and I'm like, I don't care.
Well, either way, they shouldn't be shooting on our property anyway, whether it's in the city or out of the city.
This was right after the town acquired that parcel of land. When I say right after, it was possibly maybe a month. And it hadn't, I guess the word hadn't got out that that was no longer fair game. Myself, my husband, and the man who was behind the property shooting, there were some colorful words, but then we were able to have a conversation. But I had to explain to him that I'm gonna protect my property too, and the people who live here. And so we did come to an understanding, regarding that particular situation. I just don't want it to happen again.
The manager's just suggesting, I think it's a great idea, that we'll post some signs on that property, making clear the town doesn't permit that.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'd like to take just a moment of personal privilege and welcome the former High Sheriff of Macon County, Mr. George Moses, is with us tonight. His son, right? And when I came to Macon County in 1985, Mr. Moses was the sheriff. And I got to know him back then. That's been a few years ago, George. We're glad to have you here tonight. He lives in town. There's been a few issues up there. I know Mr. Setzer's familiar with it. Town manager's familiar with it. And Mr. Moses wants to see if we can actually get something done to clear those problems up. And I won't go into a lot of detail tonight, but I do appreciate you taking the time to get out and attend this meeting tonight, both of you. Appreciate you being here.
Good to be here. Good to hear you say that. That's what we're looking for. We don't wanna raise a lot of cane, but we like to see some action over at each front. We've got a nice park. Let's bring the housing up to it.
That area was discussed in some meetings prior to this, is at one time, that was the finest subdivision in Macon County, some years back. So we need to take a look and see what we can do to help restore that as much as we can.
When we moved there in 1971, you couldn't ask for a better neighborhood. Still a good neighborhood, just needs a little tender loving care.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. Under new business, under item 9, we have a request for approval of a resolution approving the town of Franklin's 2023 local water supply plan. And I'll ask our Public Works Director, Mr. Deal, if he will bring us up to speed on what the board needs to do concerning that particular issue.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Council. So every year we have to do a local water supply plan, and this year is the 5-year update to that. And the state is requesting that we do a resolution stating that y'all can concur with the local water supply plan and it's up to date and up to speed. So Chris Green did an excellent job helping me on this water supply plan this year, and we've done a lot of extra work to find non-revenue water and lost water that wasn't being accounted for, and that reflects in this. So tonight it is a resolution for the DEQ for this local water supply plan.
We have a recommendation, Madam Manager, that be approved. Is there a motion to such?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Bobby. We have a motion, a second to approve the recommendation. Any discussion? Ms. Lane?
I had, emailed Amy earlier, but I would love, for these questions under that last chart at some time for y'all to think they would do that kind of planning.
And we can definitely do some work on that. Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a motion, a second? No more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Dale, appreciate it. You're still the best public works director we've had, so don't give up an opportunity to praise our employees when you get a chance, because they do a really good job. When the water line breaks in the middle of the night, they don't call the town council, they call the Dells who can fix it, so we thank you and your crew for doing a great job for us, Bill.
And we thank y'all for your support.
We have a request for application for the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund for a grant of $500,000 for the Whitmire property, inclusive play area, which would include restrooms, parking areas, connecting sidewalks and so forth, and I'll ask our town manager to bring us up to speed on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As we've discussed previously, part of what we want to do is to continue developing the Whitmire property as a recreational opportunity and provide different amenities there. The Cardiff grant is one of the largest grants that we're eligible to apply for. It is a $500,000 grant. It does require a 1-to-1 match. So I do have to have your permission to apply and know that you will be allocating that match money as part of this if we are awarded. The grants are due on May 1st. They will announce awards sometime in August and actually fund sometime in late September, early October. So this does go into your next budget year. However, since the application is due in this current year,
And when will they make the decision on who gets funded for this year?
August.
August?
I make a motion for approval.
Thank you. Mr. Guthrie makes a motion, Mr. Lewis seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, like sign? That motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
We have another item here, a request for engineering proposal. I will refer that to our town manager and perhaps our public works director if needed.
As you noticed tonight with all of the public hearings, especially on Siler Road, we are being proactive, as Vice Mayor Guffey has wanted us to do, and we looked at the water lines that are there. There are 2 lines that do not connect, so part of what this design request from Dewberry Design Builders is to do the engineering so that we can connect that, so that we can make it a loop system, so that if somebody happens to have a line that breaks somewhere, we don't have to shut the entire line down. We can valve it off at different locations and still allow others to continue to have water service.
This is not a small line.
It is not a small line. It is a 12-inch line, so it's a large line, but having them as an on-call engineer already, the cost for this is very reasonable, $36,500, and they think they can get the design and everything done in this current fiscal year before June 30th. So that would be excellent.
So we have a recommendation from the manager to approve a request for design builders, Dewberry Design Builders for the Siler Road project. Is there a motion concerning the recommendation?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Culpepper.
So we're basically gonna approve $36,500 to do the design work?
Yes.
And then depending on how much it is, we'll figure out when and how we're gonna do it in the
Correct.
future.
We'll figure out construction costs and everything. We might have some grant opportunities. I was contacted by Lake Silver, who is Congressman Edwards' assistant the other day, and asked if we had some project priorities, and I listed this one as one of the priorities so that we could potentially get some funding for it.
Great.
There may be some additional funds from the state and water and sewer this year. We'll keep our eyes and ears open for that, check with our local delegation and see
And
if
there's,
that's possible.
we got money in that that 36.5. We don't have to take it.
We don't have to pull it from any kind of retained earnings or anything like that. We should have it. They're one of our on-call engineers, so we set some, yeah. Yeah, you guys are only having to look at it because it's over my signature threshold.
Fair enough. You'd have done it anyway if it was.
It's $29,999, I wouldn't.
I'll have to give credit where credit's due. Our town manager is very good about squeezing that money down to the very minimum. I'll promise that the next time I buy a car, I'm gonna see if I can get her to go along with me, see if we can get a better deal. Anyway, thank you, Amy. We have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising their hand. Any opposed, the like sign. That motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we're gonna be honored with a report from our finance director, Sarah Bishop.
I'm coming to the podium so Justin doesn't complain.
Please do. You don't have to push the button on that one, it's already on.
I wouldn't have pushed the button over there, I don't like those microphones. I don't have much to update you guys on because we have been working on budget, and more budget. But, after you guys approved our audit contract last month, we now have our interim audit field work scheduled for the first week of May. We have our final audit field work scheduled for the first week of August. So we're moving ahead, with Martin Starnes because we only have 3 months left of this fiscal year and we'll be doing another audit. So, we are working with our department heads, Amy and I, and Ally and Nicole sat, in budget meetings. So we have all the budget requests from all the departments compiled. We've done all of our revenue projections. So we've got a lot of good information for you guys for the budget work session. We, are still working on a few health benefit numbers, trying to get some insurance numbers in so we can, get more concrete numbers, but it's going well. So, we've been doing a lot of work on that. One thing I did want to remind you guys have about 420,000 left. Does not have to be spent out until 2 years down the road from that, 2026. But we do have to have the contract signed for that to be legally committed by the end of this year, or we will have to give that money back. So
That's not earmarked at all, that's
for grabs, what's still left. So,
Only question I have about that, if we committed to a project between now and the end of December, and something happens next year that you wanna put it for something else, are you allowed to move it, or is it, you just have to either do what you said you were gonna use it for, or lose it?
Yep.
Keep that in mind when you make a decision.
Yep.
Okay, give it to the kids.
So will we discuss that at the budget session?
I think we should. Yeah, we definitely need to get that. I would feel a lot better if we could go ahead and get all that allocated. I would rather not have to give money back to the federal government, so.
Yeah, we don't wanna have to give it back if we don't have to.
But I think that's all that I had. Everything's looking good. Revenue reports you guys have is trending really well. We are gonna cut off spending for expenditures in about a month. They're probably gonna throw things at me. So we can prepare for fiscal year end, but yeah, time gets away from us. Wrapping up another year again soon. Any
You don't
questions?
have a question for us, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you for a good job. Thank you, sir. Thank your staff. Now, we have a familiar face who's seen us a couple of times tonight already. Mr. Setzer, would you come and tell us about planning, information technology, and facilities?
While she's cutting those on, you just might want to put your screens on. Quick, so I'm gonna go, alright. I'm gonna go over, obviously planning, but I'm gonna do a little bit of facilities and IT tonight as well. I'm gonna do IT first. This past month, we got the town upgraded, through Boston West to some faster internet speeds. And now everybody except the water plant has, we have 500 megabit per second speeds. The water plant's not on that because they are not on our fiber network, they're too far out, so they have cable out at the water plant. Also coming up here shortly, we have some new equipment we're bringing online. It's gonna be here in the police department that will back up all of our servers in-house. We were relying on a cloud service prior, and we were kind of exceeding what we can do with that cloud service, so we're going to kind of go with a little bit more traditional in-house local storage, so we can get multiple times and snapshots and backups of our servers. This past week, some people know DNet's internet service is sold off. They sold to another company called Exact Hosting. We've had some issues with them migrating to them. It's something that we're going to monitor. Fees are still the same. It's supposed to be the same exact service that we were getting, but we've already seen some issues. That's just something I'm going to bring up there. We'll be monitoring, and we might have to do some changes down the line. I'm not happy. We were very secure with our email, never had any issues, and now I'm starting to see some stuff come through that was getting caught by DNet that this company's not catching. And then facilities, I know Amy sends out those monthly or weekly reports, and maybe reported it, I think, a couple weeks ago, but now we have, at all of our facilities, we have an AED, or an automatic defibrillator. At all the facilities, there's one in the kitchen for down here, there's one upstairs in the lobby. Police already had one. We upgraded two for fire department because they had some older ones. Water, sewer, and public works all have one at their facility. And this was all with some funding that we had left over when we switched over to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I want to thank Sarah and Allie the funding part of it was a little aggravating. They had to do it wasn't a normal fund, but this was a good something so we can have in-house in case that emergency ever arises. Starting in the next week, you'll probably start seeing some flowers planted in our new bulb outs on Main Street and on the square. Geo's gonna start working on those next week. Gave him the week off this week. He's never took a vacation since he's worked here. But he took this week off, so he can come back and be ready to start planting those, and you'll see those. The Public Works, their floors have been stripped and we've re-waxed. And earlier tonight, you saw in your consent agenda, we're asking for, bring back a custodian position. We tried a contract position for a while, tried to save a little money. Didn't work out the best, so we're gonna bring back that paid position, so we'll be advertising that probably soon, since we got that took care of tonight with the consent agenda. On the planning, the Wi-Fi program's moving along. They were here last week, installing some more sites. We're still waiting on our internet with Boston West to get completed on top of the courthouse. The county's been great to work with and giving us access. Put some antennas on the courthouse to do this Wi-Fi program. On March the 21st, we had a property owners meeting here at Town Hall about the Crawford Branch Greenway extension. It was just an information site to see people like concerns, thoughts, were they okay with the potential routes, different routes, getting their opinions, and you'll probably see a report on that here coming pretty soon. They have to close that out, I think, by the 1st of June. The TAG grant, which was one we got from North Carolina DEQ to study, that was a grant we got to study the parking and traffic routes around the Niquosi Mound and Big Bear, and that's obviously that study, the same firm that's doing the Crawford Branch is doing that study as well. We'll probably see it back here in the next 2 months as well, because it's need to be closed out by the end of the fiscal year. And we'll have some recommendations on maybe some on-street parking, Big Bear, and some things around there for that. Last week also, the same time the Wi-Fi people was here, the Historic District, our consultant, Mary Russell-Henbury, was in town, and she went around, took pictures, met with some property owners, and is now we're gonna start our paperwork and our submittal for the National Register for our Historic District. So a couple of the property owners downtown are pretty excited, I think, about that, and they can potentially see some investment and help them, restore some of their second stories. Got her in a couple of buildings that's been closed up for a while, and got some pictures, and we have some buildings downtown that are like stepping back in time on the second floor. So that's, hopefully is gonna be very, good for us. Hopefully in the next week or two, we're gonna be moving forward with them 2 house demos. We've got the vendor packets back from the one. One was already a vendor, just kind of waiting for scheduling. The one is chomping at the bit to start on the house over here on East Main by Lake Emery. So hopefully we'll start seeing some movement on that here in the next week or two. And then lastly, it was asked last couple months ago, everyone to have an update of I remember whenever we were looking to hire the code enforcement position, me and Chief Harold at the time would come up here and showed you some pictures and some stuff of issues that was in town, and, kind of pleading for the code enforcement. And I've got some that are, you can see as befores and afters that have been completed, and there's some that haven't been completed yet. I'll go through them. Pretty much it's gonna be one after, they're in order. So you can see there was a junk car issue, and it's gone. Potentially another junk car though issue that's arose from since then. You can see another one here that's gone. Some more vehicles that are gone, but there's still some others on the site. Some items that have been cleaned up in town, some more junk cars. This site's seen a lot of cleanup on it from compared to 21 to now.
Where's that one?
That one was on Green Street. That last one was on Green Street. And there's another one that was on Green Street. There was some cars that were sitting there, and now those cars are gone, and there's some more vehicles are there. These are the houses on Green Street. There's really not much has changed with those. They're boarded up. There's not much you can do with the minimum housing. Haven't had any real complaints on them though. You see the difference in them, so they're about the same. Some more junk cars, stuff missing, motors, that's now gone. Another car, looks like potentially maybe been replaced with some other cars. The things are always constantly changing. Not much has changed with this house. Some more vehicles and some trash, it's no longer there. Litter's all constantly evolving, it's hard to enforce. You can see the difference in some vehicles that are gone. Litter, for the most part, cleaned up as of the end of January. This is turn, you see some litter, but now this is turned where you got the new Tesla sites. That is all of those. Now there is some others I'll show you. So this was off of Wilson Avenue, off of Georgia Road. Those are no longer there because that's where they're building that big new house you see from the roundabout with the giant, looks massive compared to some of them others. This is off Forest Hills. Pretty sure that's gone. That's where they were been cleaning up some houses. Some of these items, I don't know what the status of, this one was also took for some appliances on the front porch. That car is gone, these I don't have some update pictures. Some houses over on Gaston and Green. This house is still about the same condition. I don't have an update, this one was just, that garage was just packed full of items. Multiple lawnmowers. This house has been remodeled over off of Lyle and right there at Green Street. This is the one that done all the rock work, everything behind the race chapel. So all this is cleaned up. This one's constantly evolving because they use it as a business. It's because it's on commercial there, but it's also a residence. These are down on Love Street. I don't have any update pictures on these. I would assume these are still probably very similar to the same situation. I know that car is still there. That is a contentious owner. I'll just put it that way. The house on right there, corner of Golfview is still pretty much the same. This is over on Forest Avenue. With some of this relatively the same. This is the end of Forest Avenue on Olco. This was as of 2021. This is all changed a lot. All these cars are gone now. There's been some people in there who've been cleaning it up. So this has changed a lot since then. I think that old barn has been torn down since then. And then there's some other items on local, little minor items that have changed, some yard trash items. I think this one's over on Crestview. We need to follow up on it. More just different items. And then there's some more junk cars. This is off of Lakeview Street off of Riverview High. And I know this is gone as well. This is down in Carolina Drive. And there's been obviously lots of other things that's come up since then. We've been dealing with the issue beside George's house for over a year. And get a little way, but then something else happens and other things come in. It's just, there's lots of other things that come up that evolve with code enforcement that you get, come up. But also with that, we're gonna be looking for a new code enforcement person. So there'll be a job opening for that here in soon. So if there's anybody interested, look out on our website.
Questions from Mr. Sessions?
Justin, what kind of resources do you have to help ameliorate or clean up some of these places? I mean, is it up to the homeowner or the property owner, or do we have any resources or tools to help them? Like the place next door to Mr. Moses.
It's primarily on the property owner. We don't really have any like town resources that we can, if we get into that, that's when we're gonna get into, I'm coming with orders or something that, and then we're gonna go through, lien processes and so on. John might have a little more.
So I don't think you've enacted them, I don't know of many similarly situated towns that have, but you could establish housing assistance grants and things that let somebody clean up things, but I think the vast majority of the things that we deal with, it's not because of a lack of resources. Yeah, it's generally just motivation, yeah, that's probably a good way to put it.
Again, I don't wanna make it illegal to be poor in the town of Franklin, but I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know, half or more than half of those, they didn't offend me anyway. Like people living their life, and if they have an old appliance on their porch, I don't think it's any of our business if they have little plants on their porch, but maybe our ordinance says it's not allowed. I think the idea of zoning and or enforcement of it is to use it as a tool to remedy real situations like what's going on in the First Street neighborhood, where you have people who are, maybe not upstanding people who are allowing their house and their neighborhood to deteriorate. I really hate to think that we're chasing folks around that, aren't harming the community other than they have a little bit of unsightly stuff or unsightly to some people stuff in their yard. I think we need to focus our zoning efforts towards people who are worse seeds than just regular folks in our neighborhoods, in like the Mr. Moses situation.
Ask him how many chickens he wants over his house.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying, that it should be complaint driven, which is what it was sold to us as. But some of the pictures weren't a whole bunch of chickens.
That wasn't at our place.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that's why I'm saying, let's direct our focus towards more serious conditions as opposed to, just, enforcing arbitrarily on people who aren't being offensive to their neighbors. That's what I'm saying. Like I said, a lot of that looked completely normal and fine to me. Some of it needs to be addressed. And I think we need to pick and choose the worst offenders and go after them, and people who aren't causing any harm. Let's.
You have a lot of problem with that where you live?
Actually, when they built on the.
I grew up, Stacy, just like that. I mean.
Yeah, so did I. But the difference is we have people live in town so they can have those kinds of protections.
Yes, but some people have lived in town and they've had an old appliance on their porch forever, and I don't wanna be part of a town that goes and busts people's balls because they have an appliance on their porch, if they've lived that way forever. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, people were using outhouses and had springs running directly water into their sink in town. Like, does nobody else think it's crazy that we're going around like being mean to people because they're just living a normal life?
I haven't seen anybody going around being mean to people. I mean, if there's junk on their porch, if it's offending their neighbors, they've called in a complaint, then I think we need to go with it, help them, get it cleaned up.
Well, helping them is not being mean to them and trying to enforce an arbitrary ordinance. Helping people is addressing situations that are of a need, like this situation right here.
We've been at this for a long time.
This is a couple meetings we've been at. So again, I think we can let certain things slide, and we need to start throwing the hammer down on more offensive positions rather than what I saw in the pictures.
Our ordinance is, as Justin said, is complaint driven. You get the complaints and those ones you deal with. You can't just go out and pick and choose the ones you want to, because you have to deal with the ones where complaints are coming from. And like Mr. Lane says, you live in town, you want to make sure that you live in a good, clean, safe place, and do what you can not to offend your neighbors. Now, there are people out there who don't have much money. Like many of us around here, we grew up pretty poor. My mother said, you can be poor, but you don't have to be nasty. So if a person has got a situation where they need to have it cleaned up and they don't have the money to do that, there are several volunteer agencies here in Macon County who will be glad to come out and help clean it up. I've volunteered on several of them myself. Some of them you wouldn't believe. You would absolutely not believe how some of these people are living, not just in town, but in other parts of the county. So there is an alternative. If they really want to do that and be a good neighbor to their neighbors, there's a way to get that done. And we're not out there with a club and a gun trying to force people to do things they can't afford to do or intimidate people. What we're trying to do is create and maintain a livable space in our town, and sometimes that's hard to do. But if people want it cleaned up and they can't afford to do that, I'm sure we can help them find somebody who will help along that line. In the meantime, if they can't afford to do it and just choose not to because they don't want to do it, I think, I don't have a lot of patience with that. Any other comments?
I got a comment. You know,
Turn them out.
growing up, I'm gonna give you a good example. growing up around here, being here all our life, as you talk about, and living in a place that I grew up where there was a cow pasture right across the road and a little neat house sitting on the corner that was owned by a cousin of mine. And nice and peaceful, clean neighborhood, we all took care of it. We were there first. People moved in, now there's a junkyard, there's mosquitoes that have never been there before. There's all kinds of rodents and stuff like that. The house at the corner, I mean, it's full of junk, people in and out all the time. So whose property rights are more important? Are we gonna go out and say, well, you've been here this amount of time and you've been here this amount of time? Or is it just, if somebody's got junk in their yard, their property rights are more important than the people who've lived there? That's what I don't understand about that argument. Is if people have an expectation to live in a place that's clean, that's safe, and it's not always just the way something looks. I can tell you from experience that having a bunch of junk piled up near your house can lead to a lot of other things, like rodents that you've never had before, or like mosquitoes you've never had before, or stray animals that you've never had before. It affects people. And I don't know why we're sitting at this table if we're not in the business of trying to balance people's property rights. Your right to do something on your land as you see fit, but you don't have a right to adversely affect your neighbor as long as we have laws in place.
We can have a lot more discussions on this particular topic, and I'm sure we will as we get in our work sessions and our budgets and see what we can do as far as our ordinances and regulations and try to find a solution. There's a solution out there to deal with each one of these problems if we just look at it and try to be objective about it, treat everybody fair and with respect.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, it's about allocation of resources, which is how I framed the argument to begin with. We have done non-positive things with our code enforcement office in the past when there are people that actually do need problems resolved. And I would like to see our resources devoted to resolving problems rather than looking for infractions that are benign. We joked up here earlier about having dead tags, and every single one of us is breaking some law. And Chief could come up here and he could write us a ticket for something we do in our everyday life. But that's not who we're after when we're enforcing crime or when we're enforcing zoning. We're not just going looking for problems. We're trying to solve problems that are egregious. That's where our code enforcement focus should be, not on hassling people unnecessarily who are living an otherwise peaceful life.
Lot doesn't fix itself though.
So I want to follow up, just so
Mike's not on.
we have some common ground here, because one thing I'd like to say is before this position is advertised, and I don't know how this works, but I'd like to make sure that this time around, I don't know how to put it diplomatically, we don't have somebody spending all their time up here looking for somebody's tires up against the sidewalk, as opposed to out working on the problems that we've been talking about tonight.
I think our town manager will do a really good job trying to find the right candidate. You know how long it took us to get the one we just lost? How about 2 years? It's hard. If you know someone out there who has the ability and the right attitude to get things done, that's the person we're looking. We're not looking to penalize people. We're just looking to make sure that people follow whatever rules we have in place to protect the property and the rights of the individuals who live here. Mr. Setzer, I appreciate your time. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Setzer? You don't get paid for the minutes you stand behind there. I'm sorry, it's just whether you're there or sitting back at the back, but we appreciate all you do and all the hats that you wear. If you follow him around someday, you'll see that he does more than just one thing. Thank you. Appreciate what you do. And the last but not least, certainly our Chief Holland is here to give us a report on the police department.
I've got a lot of everybody else.
You got your ticket book with you, we might have some up there.
Happy April. Well, I hope everybody had a great Easter weekend. First of all, I'm gonna start off with some numbers. This is January 1st, 2024 through March 31st. We had 116 criminal incident reports made. We had 71 collision reports made. And as you can tell, we're getting stats. Our numbers are rising a little bit, which is good and bad. It depends on how you perceive it. We had 55 arrests made, most of them being drug violations and theft. Theft including larceny, but also fraud type cases. As far as citations go, there were 226 charges made via citation and 127 charges made on warning tickets, for mainly traffic offenses. When I introduced Sergeant Breedlove, I wanted to touch on his position. It's not a new position, it's not an added position, but it's one we had that a former officer left, so I kind of revised it with the guidance of Miss Amy to better fit the needs of Franklin, and that's why I picked the name, because us cops, we love names and cool abbreviations, so I come up with CTAC, which is the focus of that position will be community traffic and crime. And I gave him orders last week to target Hillside Street, and he's already been up there. He told me today that he waited 2 hours on a person of interest that went in your neighbor's houses Friday, for him to leave, and he never left. This morning, he found a suspicious person parked opposite side of the factory in just a random driveway, and they searched him but didn't find anything. So he is working that area. You'll see him more often to the two addresses that we know about. I've also given the same orders and some, when I passed you the other day about the speeder at 5 a.m. in the morning, I told our night shift about that. So hopefully they will get on that as well. But you will see more of that officer, more of us very, very soon. And to go with our staffing, we only have 2 positions open now, and we have 2 potential hires in the basic law enforcement training. And hopefully they will work out and we will be completely staffed. And I've tweaked our structure a little bit to where starting today, actually, during the busy times of the day, most times of the week, there'll be 4 to 5 officers working. So that's going to give us time to do extracurricular projects, do campaigns, focus on our problem areas, and not just answer calls like we've been doing the past 2 or 3 years. And when we get the 2 new ones on board, it's going to get, we're going to be even better staffed. And I think just a minor restructuring is going to make better use of our officers by moving the staffing from the early morning hours when nothing happens and that wee morning hour or late night hours, and kind of move them to the middle part of the day and they better use them. We're more efficient in our job. But anyway, back to this CTAC officer. A lot of their description, or his description of responsibilities will be to coordinate the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program, which is governed by the governor's safety program. And they're the ones that do the booze it and lose it. And they did one last week called Speed a Little, Lose a Lot. So just in March, since Sergeant Breedlove's been working, he took over the program. They did the Booze It and Lose It campaign during St. Patrick's Day, and they got 25 traffic violations. They did the Speed a Little, Lose a Lot last week, got 7 violations, and they have done 6 saturation patrols, which is where 2 or 3 or more officers get in a certain location and just basically heavy patrols, stop a lot of cars for violations. And over the 6 saturation patrols, they got 26 charges out of that. And each time we participate in one of these events, we get points that we can redeem October of every year to get needed equipment. Last October, we ordered 2 new radars, which we need, 6 alpha sensors. We got 2 speed bumps, we got some blood alcohol kits for our DWIs, and this is all free, and it's a lot of money when you add it up. He's going to coordinate the Safe Kids program, target and focus on neighborhood problems like Hillside Street, do the drug interdiction, selective traffic enforcement, which would be pedestrian walkways and crosswalks up here, and any other complaints we have in the community. As far as speeding or any other type of traffic complaint. He will participate in community events like career fairs, any type of hero days, some local businesses do. And he will also support patrol and investigations when they get busy. He's there to help. Also back in March, the police department, under the approval of Miss Amy, we purchased a drone that was purchased from 100% donations that were made by Howard and Debbie Shipman, Angel Medical Center, and the Rotary Club. And 2 weeks ago, myself and Sergeant Bingham went to the initial training to get licensed under the FAA for that. We go next week to take our test. I have 3 other supervisors registered to attend in June for the same training. And I'm working on some policy implementation now, so we will use it, and we will use it with integrity. And we'll have some law, policy and of course the federal laws to go by. But I feel like we gotta keep up with the times, and it's gonna come in very useful, not just for the police department, but we can use it for the fire department as well as public works and town planning. There's many uses for it, not just for public safety. Including myself, getting 2 other officers kind of geared up for bike patrol since the weather's getting better. We still have our regular bicycle down at the Greenway, also our e-bike. And so we're getting them geared up, ready to go, and especially with the extra staffing in the busy parts of the day, they'll be more free to take on this bike patrol. And last but not least, we'll end on a happy note. I planted 10 trees behind the fire department. Under the guidance or approval of Miss Amy and the okay by Chief Foreman. As you know, the property behind the fire and police sold, and I want to go ahead and get a privacy fence growing. Yeah, so it's, I bought 10 Fuji giant trees from the Winding Stair Nursery and spent a couple of days planting them, and hopefully they'll get growing, and we'll have a nice little privacy screen so nobody sees our junk. I had to throw that in there.
Thank you. If you don't have your ticket book with you, I'll ask you,
Yeah.
I got any questions from the chief?
That's very good. Well, not a question, but I thank you for looking at Main Street, because every day, the speeding, the total disregard for pedestrian safety, I see it all the time.
And it's something too, is with all these new officers, none of them are certified in radar, so it's problematic for us to enforce it, but the nearest and the next radar class is in July at AD Tech, so I'm gonna try to send 1 or 2 there. The one in March that SCC held, we didn't have the staffing to send anybody, so that's our priority.
Is all your radar the same models, or you have like
There's
different models?
most of them are the same, but the 2 new ones we're getting from the Governor's Highway Safety is a newer model and a different brand, so,
That's what we run into at the sheriff's office.
we're gonna get them checked off.
You have to be certified by an instructor on that machine. We've got 4 or 5 different radar machines.
And
So-
Curtis Duddle with SCC is willing to, once we get them certified, they just gotta go out and check off on the unit itself. But, the ball's rolling in the right direction, like when I left it, there was 5 or 6 people working, it's a good feeling, knowing there's people there to help.
How much interdiction do you anticipate from any position?
Quite a bit, he's been out there, since March 11th, he don't sit around, he's busy, he's, always stopping cars, and he's just got an eye for it and a knack for talking to people and getting into cars.
So there's gonna be a fair balance between that and all his other duties,
Yes. Like I said, this position's previous responsibility was just drug interdiction. And I think we need to, it's almost like a catch-all position. He's gonna do whatever needs to be done.
Anyone else? With the 2 that you have coming in to replace those 2 positions we have left, you'll have a full staff. And that's something a lot of other municipalities and even counties can't say right now. They're still hurting. It's hard to find people who are willing to go into law enforcement. And I think it's a tribute to the town, it's a tribute to the police department and to the leadership to be able to attract, recruit, and retain qualified policemen. So thank you for what you do.
especially given where we were 3 years ago.
No, it's been a long time coming. We all deserve it.
Thank you. Items from the council. Anybody have any items that they'd like to share with the rest of us tonight? Mr. Collins?
No, sir.
Mr. Culpepper?
The old landfill property, is it ever gonna be usable for anything?
The old landfill property?
That's a,
Next to the radio station up there?
you know, I've dogged that for years, and every time I get over close there, Chris Stahl just shakes his head no and says it's still cooking. I'm not sure he knows how much it's cooking down there. We do need, and we're talking about the old landfill that has been, retired for a couple of generations now. And we really do need to push them a little bit. The county's responsibility is to have it retired, and they're the ones who's monitoring it. And I don't know, Chris, I wouldn't say that he just doesn't want to fool with it, but I almost said it just then. But either way, I want him to show us that why it's not at this stage usable.
And the reason I bring it up, there's a big push, there's a lot of counties and municipalities that are actually turning those old spaces into recreation, like mountain bike trails and things like that, so, I mean, it's quite a bit of property up there, and it undulates well, but that would be a good use for it.
I'm
Yeah,
familiar,
good
very
point.
familiar with that property. More familiar than I'd like to share. But anyway,
I think it's dirty, but it's.
oh, Miss Elaine, I'm sorry.
I would like to say how glad I am for us to be focusing on property that needs to be fixed and cleaned up. And one of the things I remember you saying you campaigned on is making this town look better. And I think that it makes people feel better if they are not living, in areas where things look really bad. And I'm glad that we're focusing on it, and I want us to keep it up. And the day that we get that house down, next to the woman that has the animal hospital's place, I was gonna say I'd buy everybody a beer, but I don't even drink, so I'll buy everybody a bottle of water.
One of the contractors, I'm not gonna say who it is or whether they got the contractor or not, but, I ran into him the other day and he's anxious to go, so we'll see.
Well,
Thank you.
we need to do it.
Mr. Thompson?
I'm just happy to see we have a lot going on in this town, and I see, sorry. We've got a lot going on in this town, and it's just, I'm just excited to see all the things that we have going on from police department, waterworks, our projects, and the healthy discussions we can have up here.
Mr. Thompson was, representing, our town board at a recent, training session for new, elected officials in Nashville, along with our town manager, and, they give you a lot of information. It's kind of like, somebody, to use the expression, is trying to like get a drink of water out of a fire hydrant, you know? But these things will come to you. Appreciate your work on the board and your efforts to be up to date on what's going on. Mr. Lewis, do you have something?
Other than the fact that Stacy and I were gonna pull an April Fool's prank and try to put an item on the agenda that we wanted to make the entire city limits a social district. But we just didn't do it, so we thought it'd take too much of us.
Thank you for not doing that. Mr. Guffey.
Yeah, so one of our esteemed council members has been expressing a desire lately to have his name on something important here in the town of Franklin, namely a bridge. And so that's why it's, our next meeting, next month, I'm gonna propose that this area down here where the hospital is, with a big sort of gully that runs through town, that we officially name that Collins Bottom.
Collins Bottom. That's kind of a ring to it, Joe. Maybe an April Fool's joke. Zoe, would you have anything?
No, sir.
I would just like to say that, we had a good turnout for the unveiling last weekend of the Women's History Trail, statue, sculpture. I don't know how many people were there, but, there were probably several hundred there, I'm sure. good turnout, and former chief of Cherokee was there, did a good job. And, several of our board members were there, so we appreciate y'all doing that. And they got a little publicity out there, and like Mr. Collins said, we need to probably let more people know about what that is.
There's nothing like that in the state, and
This is-
probably very few things like that in the entire country.
This is a very, there may be others coming along, but this is the very first Women's History Trail in North Carolina. Thanks to Barbara McCray and the Women's History Trail and the Macon County Folk Heritage Association and the town of Franklin, along with support from the county. And so I think it's, I think it'll be, well visited and, hopefully publicized, but, I appreciate all the hard work that everybody did, and I appreciate this town council getting behind that project and making it a reality. A lot of times we think of these good ideas, but we don't ever get through to seeing them done. That one is completed. This board, I think, has a legacy now over the past couple of years of tackling projects, getting them funded, and getting them done. And I sincerely hope that we continue along that path. I think we will. Thank you all for your service. If not, we have item 12 as a closed session. We're still scheduled for that, Ms. Owens? Under General Statute 143, 318, 11A5, to discuss acquisition of real property of a purchase, option, exchange, or lease. Is there a motion to go into closed session for that purpose?
So moved.
Mr. Goodry makes a motion. Is there any second? Mr. Lane seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed, the like sign. Motion carries. We will now be in closed session. Press,
Did y'all get invited?
I don't think we
Anybody?
got a closed session. And, our next regular meeting is May the 6th.
Good for them, though, I guess, right? God bless them. Go to God. Why,